Alright, hi everyone. Today we'll be going through question number 4, practical 7. I believe one of the classmates actually asked me to explain what my answer, how is it done, see? Okay, so first of all, look at the question we have here. So create a sample CSV file that contains the following sample data. 1, 2, 3, and then we have the hello world, comma equal to A1, so on and so forth, right? So the question says, you are supposed to create two Python function called readFile, file name, which reads the CSV file and writes the data to a list in the desired format. However, we have to enclose a square bracket in each item in the CSV file before returning this process list. This process list will then be pushed over to this writeFile function, which will require us to enter a destination file name and the list data that we return from the readFile function. So in my code on the right hand side that you can see, I have two functions, right? So I have readFile, file name, and then I also have the writeFile. So let's go through the first particular function, which is readFile. So as you guys know, we have gone through the open file and how we can read a file. So like I can see, we have a file path equal to file name, which is denoted from a get input. You can see over here. So once we are able to actually identify the file name, we are opening the file using read lines because you want to read every single line as a list. So once we have this list, which is inside data, we create another thing called data list. Why we want to create data list? Because data list is something that we're gonna push back or return at the end of this function. So we create this just in case we need to use this, and then we go ahead and reading the data, which is the list of each individual lines. So simply we can just put for line, so for each individual line in the data, we make sure that the data list item is blank. We have a line dot strip. So what this essentially does is removing the /n that we don't want. So anything that is unwanted, it will automatically remove. And then since this is a comma separated file, we ensure that the commas are removed and delimited and given back to us as a list. So what you can see in columns here, COLS, right, basically holds a list of values. So for example, we have 1, 2, 3 in our first line. The column 0, column 1, column 2 is going to be 1, 2, and 3 respectively. So just to write this down to show you an example, what columns hold for the first line is alright, so columns number 0 will be equal to 1. Then we have columns number 1, which is equal to 2. Then we have column number 2, which is 3, it will equal to 3. So respectively, every single line is accordingly to the columns and denoted accordingly to the comma that you have, right? So let's say the next line is going to be hello world, the next one is going to be equal A1 plus B1 times C1, or the third one will be FOO full, right? So this is how columns actually return. So once we split this, we have to give a square bracket to every single value, right? So remember how we can actually look through every single line in the data list or in data? What we can do is that we also can look through every single values in columns. So what we essentially do is that we look every single value in columns, and then we give it an item, say, data list item plus equal, right? So once we have this data list item, which is a string, right? Data list item is a string for us. We just plus equal to actually give it a square bracket. So what this essentially does, right, is this. I'm going to try and write it down for you. So data list item, for the first iteration loop, would be equal to this. data list item equal to square bracket 1. Right? Then afterwards, the second loop, let me just go replace a little bit here. So the second loop, and then the third loop will be equal to square bracket 2. And then this one will be square bracket 2, square bracket 3. So this is how it works, right? Each individual loop has their own set of information that they'll add in. Because you see, I'm putting plus equal here. So plus equal is basically concatenating to what is before, which is why you can see 1, 2, 3 add on. So once we have this string data list item done, right? Before we end, the minute we get out of this loop, which is what you can see, this indentation over here, data list, we append this into our data list. Remember, data list is something that we're gonna return, right? Data list is to be returned at the end of the function. So at the end of the function, we'll make sure that we return this data list for write file to actually process this file. So we make sure that every single call, before we end off this one iteration loop, we add it into the data list, and then we move on to the next line. And then for every single line, basically you'll be adding a square bracket no matter what. And then at the end of the day of this particular function, read file, we make sure we close this file, and then we return the data list. Okay, so as you can see here, write file, get input, we ask for the output file first, and then we ask for the read file. So in read file, we actually return this data, right, to this write file. Because let's look at write file. Write file requires 2 parameters, which is destination file and list data, right? And we have the read file to return the data list, which is going to be here, and then the destination file will be triggered accordingly through the destination file, which is through the get input. So once we actually return the file, we will be coming over to this section, which is called the function write file. So write file is quite straightforward. What we do is that we open the file, we create a file, we call it write mode. We make sure that the output is blank. So output is the particular thing that we're going to write into that file. So we read every single line in our list data, which is written by data list, right? List data, and then we make sure that every single line we put in, we have a /n. So /n is basically breaking new line, right? And then once we have all this information in a single string, what we do is that we just simply write this into a file, and then we close this. So that's about how question number 4 works and how my code runs. So feel free to ask me any questions if you have any questions, and email me if you have any doubts or anything. I'll feel